As you may know, chiropractic has very humble yet powerful beginnings. And as chiropractic grew, there were chiropractors who were thrown in jail for practicing and living what they believe. And that is what I would love to talk to you about today. That's not something that happened 100 years ago. This is something that if we do not live and practice what we believe, that can happen to us. And I have the greatest honor to bring on a dear friend, incredibly powerful chiropractor, Jim Karagiannis. Welcome to the show all the way from Melbourne, Australia.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks for having me. It's a great honor having being on your show, and thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, welcome. So I would love to jump in. A lot of docs say, "Oh yeah, we're not being thrown in jail. We're not being, our rights aren't being taken away, and we can still do whatever we want." And because we hear a lot of chiropractors that and we're fortunate to say, man, we've had the best years of our lives the last few years, and others who were shut down. You and I met 5 years ago in the States. We
Yeah,
met at the Berkshires.
yeah,
That the amazing Scott Garber
yeah.
birthed and grew and whatnot. But please, yeah, share with us how's it been and how is it now?
Yeah, well, thank you. You're right. We met at the Berkshires when the Australian contingent came over to the Berkshires. And you know what was a funny story? You have snow all the time, and yet when it started snowing, there, all the Australians rushed to the windows and were just watching it snow because it doesn't snow very much where we live, right? So that
That's
was like a
right.
big novelty, and people were like, "What are you doing?" It's just like, "Well, like snow, man. You don't see this anywhere we're at." So that was just me off going off tangent.
I
Uh,
remember that. That was awesome.
yeah. So what's it been like? Well, look, I it's quite relevant you asked me that question because yesterday was the day. Even though I coach and mentor a lot of other chiropractors, yesterday was the final day of hands-on for me. Yes, I literally that was my final day in practice,
Wow.
and living in Melbourne over the last few years, which was the most lockdown city in the world. Um, it was a very interesting and a surreal place to live. I think it affected the psyche of a lot of people because, even including chiropractors. So a lot of our coaching clients who are outside of Melbourne, for example, in regional areas, like you said, quite often had some of their biggest years, and a lot of them have grown. Where the natural order for a lot of people was separation, they were able to talk about connection. And as a result of that, people craved that, and they went to them in droves. And so that's what we saw. But a really interesting happened in Melbourne where there was disconnection, and by disconnection, heart, mind, soul, the whole lot. And the reason why I'm saying that I finished up yesterday as a part of my finishing up. I started calling people that I hadn't seen for a while, who I had seen for a long time, and say, "Hey, listen, Mary, I'm just finishing up. I just put a call in just to let you know that I'm finishing up. I won't be here, but I wish you all the best." And some of these people, they still are traumatized by the lockdown and what happened to them. I physically haven't seen them. Some of them haven't been out of their home for 2 years. And
Wow.
it's extraordinary to realize the impact that an event like that had. It wasn't, there are many reasons and there's many theories, and I know I have my beliefs. It's not the forum of that, but something happened to the psyche of people, and we felt it here in Melbourne. And for a while there was what felt like anarchy was building, where there was tension, and the chiropractic paradigm and model was really tested for a lot of people. And there's a lot of chiropractors who struggled, who I know for me, in the times that I was practicing in there, it felt incongruent to the model and message that I could communicate. And I appreciated that they were the guidelines that I could do. But we had raids in practices in Melbourne consistently. So that was the framework of and the backdrop of what it was like for many of our colleagues to practice here in Melbourne. So and yet other areas of Australia, people are like, we have no concept of what that's like. So yeah, just to give you a bit of context, it gave me an understanding of what it would have been like for some of our forefathers to actually want to be principle based. However, the system did not support that.
Can I ask you a question on that then? And
Sure,
Mary,
man.
thank you
Everything's
for giving us an
uh,
idea. sometimes people don't realize how good we have it or where we have it until you get to
Yeah.
hear eye-opening.
Yeah.
So I know that in one of your incredibly successful businesses, Lux Consulting,
Yeah.
I know that you preach and you teach and you live that abundance mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I've been hearing from people just like you who are just incredibly successful individuals in life is crises and trials are going to come.
Yeah.
So, and you can learn lessons during those times, but man, if you have the framework set up,
Yeah.
you will go out and have more success. What would you say was the biggest mindset lesson that you had already owned and had a foundation on before this happened that got you to be here today in front of us?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, because I got to be honest, there were moments where I was losing part of myself in that process, where the rebellious part of me, and I have a rebellious streak, was really challenged. And the part of me that went, okay, if you just rebel and, if you just go through anger, then you've lost. So effectively, it had to be I had to go almost what we call in neurolinguistics is go meta. I had to really rise above myself, find a bigger calling and a reason to find peace, to find certainty within uncertainty. So effectively, it was like, I've done a lot of forex trading, and what happens is there's massive oscillations that are outside of your control. The only thing that you have control over is yourself and your bearings and your center. And if you lose that, you're going to be taken up in whatever's going on externally. So the only way that I found that I could navigate the uncertainty, and we didn't know what that was like from one minute to another, was to be certain in self, get grounded, focus on what I know to be true. And if you've ever watched the movie Inception, when there's a spinning top and you had to just get clear and go, is this real, or was this make-believe or a figment of imagination? There were plenty of times we had to get grounded and focus on what was true and real to get a sense of self. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and your honesty,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're a hero of mine. You're a good friend. When I remember when my wife and I when we met at the Berkshires, that was a pretty pivotal moment for us because
I,
we had
I remember I remember the conversation, Jake.
yeah,
Yeah.
we,
And
we
you
had,
and to watch your journey from that point, there was the pre-meeting you and Emma, and afterwards, and to watch you go for bigger and better and greater things. I could actually map that process, and I agree with you. There was a shift around about that time where something occurred for you. And when we work with people, we look at it and we go, it's usually down in one of three categories: mindset, motivation, or method. There's something that shifts for someone. And there's definitely been a shift in there. This is not to psychoanalyze or determine what's going on, but from an outsider looking in, I went, something shifted for Jake, and look at the great things he's doing now.
oh, you're so kind. You're so kind.
Yeah.
Because at the Berkshires, I mean, here we are in Massachusetts, right?
Mm.
And who were the first, some of the first people that come and greet us and introduce themselves is you and Bettina, you and your sweet
The
wife.
Australians. Well,
The
for the same
Aussies,
thing,
right?
we figured we don't know anybody, so let's go and just lean in. And I think that's one of my mottos is, anytime I face uncertainty and fear and doubt, I don't turn away from it. I turn around and go into it. So to me, it was like, well, you've traveled halfway around the world. You don't know anybody. A stranger is a stranger to you and to, as well, and you're a stranger to them. So how do you change that? Lean in, have a conversation, start a conversation, and that's really how that was in its most purest and basic form.
Yes.
That's how things change. That's how things evolve. You don't run away from it. You lean into it.
I love that because that's been a thought that I've truly embraced and have been and really studying for me. What does it mean to lean in instead
Yeah,
of lean away? And I see colleagues all over the time, all over the country who have these incredible seminars and that we get to go to or coach or participate in or lead. And I actually will see a lot of people that are catching up on their sleep. I
yeah,
mean, you're jet lagged. There's a 15-hour difference, in some
yeah,
cases, and to see that you guys came out with your pisiforms blazing, as our good friend Liam Schubel talks about.
yeah, yeah,
But you guys came and you were on purpose and you leaned in. And
yeah,
man, I remember talking to Emma and saying, the fastest way to get to any destination is to ask someone who's already there for directions. And
Yeah.
you and Bettina were so open and you were so kind. And I catch a lot of times with colleagues, and I'd love to ask you this question. A lot of times we have our agenda, because I was there
Yeah.
saying, this is my first conference I get to go to. My practice is, I'm away from my practice. We're growing. We have this blessing. We're taking a vacation after this. And sometimes we lead with what we want. You guys asked us so many questions. You asked dear questions. You answered questions. You gave counsel, appropriate counsel. What would you say to the chiropractor today when it comes to giving the message of chiropractic, but how can we give it and tailor it to the person in front of us? How can we do that as chiropractors and do it so masterfully and wonderful the way you and Bettina do?
Well, thank you first and foremost. I'm just sitting with what you're basically saying and taking the gift of the comment, right? So that I just wanted to take a moment to just honor that and take that on. Look, to me, I think it's about valuing the value and of someone else, and so
Wow.
effectively, um, in any exchange, the way that I can connect to them is to connect what I find is important to them. And if there's a match between what I've, like from a chiropractic perspective, the first thing we always have coached everybody to do is to identify and get to really know who you're talking about. To find out what their values are, what's important to them, how that shapes their world, what beliefs do they have, all those kind of things, and really understand that, and understand if you are offering a service, and in this case, let's talk about chiropractic. If you feel in integrity that your product and service helps them achieve what they're looking for better, faster, more efficiently, and expresses a high level of life, then you're a match. And you owe it to them to let them know about what it is that you do, right, within a congruent way and an ethical way. If you're not a match, you let them know.
Yep.
And there are plenty of times, like, one of the greatest things that I've learned over time is that it's not how many people you help necessarily, but it's how many people you serve. And so there are people who we weren't a right match for, but we found the right person for them. They're eternally grateful. So for me, it's about valuing what someone else values. It may not be as important to me as it is to them, but I owe it to them to make it a priority to understand that and understand why it's important to them. So I think as a starting point, that always helps. That serves us because, I can have conversations about so many different things that I know nothing about, just purely because I've asked some questions that have helped me understand more about that person. So consequently, I only need one or two things to add to that, and we're in great rapport. And so I'm expressing to them that, hey, you're important to me enough for me to find out about you. So I'm just gonna that we kind of do that as a discipline, but also after a lifetime, it becomes a habit.
I love that, valuing what they value and finding
Yeah,
that. I remember, talking to the people that we looked up to for years and being like, oh, we're in the presence of these incredible people who are givers, people that I know. Looking at Scott Garber and Sean Dill and Lacey Book and Liam Schubel and Jack Burla and Steve Tullius and just many of our dear mentors and friends
yeah,
and now and colleagues. And I remember when we were asking, so I'm like, okay, hey, so we just met like Jim and Bettina, and to hear that hush of
mm,
humility, and they're like, because sometimes you don't know who's in front of you,
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
know, and I truly believe that when you're anytime you're in the presence with anyone, you're standing with greatness, but
yeah,
to hear where you were, to hear from other people in a humble way with a hush, share who you guys were, and you weren't taunting that, you weren't floating the, hey, look how great we are and look at the wonderful success we have, but you were genuinely interested in the people that were there and how can you help elevate them to greater levels, even more greater levels of success. You absolutely have that. So
yeah,
and I want to ask about that.
yeah. Go for it.
How did you get there? So everyone, we always hear, make it about you. Every
Yeah.
conversation we have with business, with coaching, with our clients, with whatever, make it about you. But how did you truly cultivate this? Because this can be a talent people have, but this is definitely a learned and a learned skill. What would you say are the biggest things that you had to learn to cultivate this skill?
Yeah. Look, I think it's actually that's a great question. I was talking to a chiropractor about this recently, and I said, when you focus on mastery, and I'm grateful in that I've got a background in martial arts, and that has really kept me humble. There's nothing more. There's no greater way to humble yourself than to walk into a dojo, talking up a big game and finding out very, very quickly that your expectations don't necessarily meet your talent, right? So that to me has been the leveler for all the time. And I take some of my greatest lessons and learnings in life from the time I've spent on a mat. So that's all helpful. To me, I've my beautiful wife Bettina is one of the most humble people I've ever met, and so we've toured the world on speaking gigs. And what I've always admired about her is that she can connect with anybody, irrespective of where they are, who they are, what role they have doing. Her approach is the same all the way and all the time. And I've really modeled that from her as well too. So, everyone from, the service person to we go and fill up petrol, as we call it here, or gas. And we treat them with respect and courtesy, irrespective. So to me, I think as a way of life, I've always respected and appreciated everybody, knowing that they deserve that. And so as a filter through that carries over. That's just the way I was brought up. That was just the way I've appreciated it. And it transferred into the practice because I remember having a conversation with our team, and there were occasionally people would go, "Hey, they're a great patient," or "They're a great client." "They're not as great client." And I always remember this one lady who would come in every week, and she came in for like 15 years. And we always used to wonder how she could ever prioritize and afford her care. And she had so many challenges, health challenges, life challenges, and yet every day, every week, without fail, she was there at the same time. And it really, I remember having a conversation with our team going, you know what, this is probably the highlight of her week. She probably gets more love and more attention and more appreciation in the few minutes that she's in our office. So we owe it to her to give her a Rolls Royce experience every time she's in. And she loved that. She felt special. And so I think it's a combination of, the gift of having a life partner I've been with for over 30 years who has a really grounded, loving essence and presence about everybody. That then becomes a way of life. And how we express that has been through the love, service, and connection of chiropractic. That's one avenue. And when we move to other areas, it's not a chiropractic thing. And chiropractic, I feel, is blessed and fortunate in that's so much part of our DNA. But the expression, you can just get the same level of love, certainty in other expressions. And whether we coach, whether we do other things, whether we were presidents of our sporting associations, we still brought that persona, those values to that role. So I think it's about being congruent in all areas of your life, and how you do one thing is how you do all things.
Wow, man, you taught some powerful lessons through your life right there. One of the thoughts that came to my mind is when love and skill come together, expect a masterpiece. You can learn incredible skills, but when you do not have that love and that passion, it's going to come across exactly as most people feel it. It's sleazy, not genuine, fake. And man, you spoke from authenticity and certainty and love. Mm-hmm. And I love that you are so humble, because I've seen your pictures of you bruised, and I've seen your pictures of you and your wins. And to see that you have to be humble, BJ, what did BJ teach, right? BJ Palmer taught that once you think you're ripe, that's when you rot.
You rot.
When you think you have it all and you have all the knowledge and you have it all, that's when you rot. And I was reading the other day the wealth that he had assessed in his career and what it would be equal to today. It's huge. Insane. And he still, what did he say on his dying bed? And what did I see in your post the other day? Like guard the sacred trust.
Yeah.
That was his focus, and I love that is still remains to be one of your focuses right now, is guarding that sacred trust. I love that.
100%. Like so for me, I in our practice, I'd made the decision that I'd be finishing up. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and we were drawn to coaching probably about 10 years ago. And there's, synchronicity, callings, a whole lot of reasons. But I knew intuitively it was time that I was going to move away from that. But I don't know. I believed so much in the legacy. We took over a practice that's one of the longest standing ones in Melbourne. And there's a legacy and a history in that. And so there are people that I said goodbye to who have been coming into our office for 50, 60 years, 70 years. And, we're a young country compared to all the other countries. So that's a long history now in our part of the world. But, I owed it to them. I felt like I owed it to them to actually find a custodian who would continue on those principles. We had many offers for people to just come in and buy in and out. And I didn't want that. That's the part of me that places a high value on legacy and the principles and the character and all those kind of things. So, I can buy and sell other things, commodities. I do that very well and very successfully. But there was something special about chiropractic. This was all I ever wanted to do as a kid, right? And when I found a place that honored those principles, and when it was a hard enough decision to make a decision that it was time to hang up the basically the piezoforms, metaphorically speaking. It was so difficult. I really struggled with that for quite a while, because it's a case of how do you reconcile to the 5-year-old kid who's only ever wanted to do this, and now you're going, okay, I'm walking away from it. So that was the whole journey that I had to go through.
Wow.
And it only made sense when I realized there's higher calling, there's other roles, but I had to find the right people and the custodians to guard the sacred trust, because the last 2 years in Melbourne, it's been battered and bruised, and a lot of people have lost their way. And in order for me to honor the people, the giants whose shoulders I stood on over years, was only to find someone who could continue that on. So that was why that was a really important and symbolic process for us. Yeah.
You truly are a man of vision. And I really believe that when you have the vision you do, and in chiropractic, what's one of the first conversations that we hear some of our, we ourselves and colleagues like, hey, how you doing? How many people you seeing? And
Yeah.
and to get to the point where, I mean, that's honestly subjective and relative. That, what type of impact are you making? And I see in you seeing that wheel turn of, I can only help as many people as I can help. I can employ some great, doctors. I can have multiple clinics, but how far really is your reach? And to see that your mindset changed to exponentials is incredible. And to you, the chiropractor listening right now, you have to live the law of exponentials in your life and in your practice if you are going to make the impact that is going to change this world. And one person at a time is how it starts. But when you get that momentum and that growth, so what do you say to the chiropractor listening now? What do you say to the chiropractor who is running as fast as they can run? What do you say to that chiropractor who feels that, man, I'm getting tired, I can't do this alone, but and here's what I hear: I need to hire staff, and it's always followed by, but I can't.
Yeah.
I need to hire more doctors, but I can't. What do you say to that doctor with the vision you have now that you are executing? What do you say to him? What do you say to her?
There will always be that what ifs, but I can't, or it's not the right time. Like when we were ready to start a family, we were there going, are we ready? I know it could be whatever. And you know what? There's never the perfect time. It just is. And so I think it's a testament of investing in faith and yourself first. I can't really go into the specifics right now because we're in the process of a big announcement regarding some of the direction we're going. But we brought our kids up to always back themselves, to have faith, to chase their dreams, and a huge opportunity has come up for us in the last few months. And it has literally turned our world upside down. And this was one of those defining moments where we let our kids know and go, hey, listen, this opportunity has come up for us. How do you feel about that? And it was one of those moments where our kids, they're like 21, 22 and 26, said, you know what, we're going to turn this on you. And all our life, you've said to back ourselves to do this, whatever. What do you think you should do? And we're like, we know what we want to do. We just wanted to make sure that you were okay with it. And they said, yeah, this you are living what you told us to do. And so we earn street cred with our kids by investing. And so we are walking into, we've been incredibly blessed to be incredibly successful on multiple levels.
Yes.
This is by far the biggest Everest that we are scaling, that we're just about to go through, that embraces leaning into everything that we talked about, embracing our vision, uncertainty, investing it before you know what's going to happen. And sometimes it's just investing in you and faith, because sometimes it's just going, man, it doesn't make logical sense. My accountant tells me it's crazy, but I just know that I know that this is a pivotal moment. This is one of these defining moments, a sliding doors moment, that if I don't do this, if I go left instead of going right, I'll stay stuck in the same patterns. But this is a huge faith play. And to me, investing in people or systems or a program or a coach before you feel you can is really basically saying, I back me.
Wow. So I love that. And so you've taught a principle, and how incredible to see that you're, as you're talking to your kids, about their welfare, they're like, Mom and Dad, this is what you taught us our whole lives. Yeah. And the fact that you can make this choice now, it tells me one thing, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong or right, or if I'm on the right path. Everyone has their why. Why do I do what I do? But you've known your what. You've known what you want. And so and the what can be huge, but you've known what you want. So when something appears, like this great thing happening in your lives, and I feel I know you very well, Jim, you and Bettina. Yeah. And I understand the great successes. So when you tell me that this literally is an Everest, I mean, I'm going through my mind thinking, oh my gosh, this is monumental. Yeah. But you've known your what. So therefore, when this opportunity came, you jumped, because this is exactly what you want.
Yeah, well, look, that's definitely there. It's definitely there, and there's also an element of the world and life experiences conspired to prepare us for this moment, right? So the what is, we always had a clear direction, and we've always worked to that path, but we also had the self-awareness to go, you know what, we need to course correct here, because the vision is still the vision, but I thought it was going to be like here, but this is actually leading me to somewhere else. And so, I've always wanted chiropractic to be rightfully at the forefront of health choice. And in answering your question from earlier on, when someone actually is tired, they're exhausted, they're going, I don't know what to do. Sometimes running the same playbook, just running it harder and faster, is not the strategy, right? So my previous model of success was, I'll just take a bigger run up and just run into things. And that will work up until the point where it doesn't work. Yes. And so for me to help chiropractic, what I'm doing looks counterintuitive. I know what Bettina's doing to help chiropractic. And once this will be revealed, people will go, okay, I can see that pathway. Well, what the heck are you doing? Because I can't see how that's linked up. But to me, it's actually expanding the people who have influence over health choices and the dollars that are allocated, and directing those to chiropractic in a way that we're not doing in chiropractic. And so fundamentally, for me to help, the profession and the calling that I love, I had to almost go outside of industry to recruit people who will actually come back in to actually help the cause. So it's not meant to be cryptic. It's just basically trying to say is that sometimes when you are running as fast as you can, you can either recruit someone who's done what you're wanting to do and help speed that up. Sometimes you basically find something within you to give you the resolve and the tenacity and the capacity to keep going. Sometimes you've just got to go, wait a minute, is there another way we can do this? Do I need to just use a different process or a different mindset, or just think outside in order to get the same outcome? Because just by working harder and faster isn't necessarily the strategy that's going to get me that level of success that I'm after, or whatever it is, that outcome. So I've had the success. I was very fortunate, and Bettina and I, within the first year, practice blew up really quickly, but I wasn't clear on my values and my why and why I wanted to do that. So I wanted the outcome, and I got the outcome and went, hang on, I thought I'd feel differently to this. Is this what I didn't think this was going to be like this? And so I almost got within the first year getting to the outcome and going, I don't want to do this anymore.
Wow.
So I really had to get really clear on, when you say about my why, yes, it was, but it's been something that progressed and got clearer as time has gone on, where I had a general direction, and for me, I lock on and I definitely chase down the goal, but it's through experience and time, and it's refined. And now I'm just looking at and saying, okay, the objective and the desire is still there. I've just changed how I'm going about it.
Wow. And you brought up something that's really important. A lot of times, you get into a level of success where money's coming in, freedom can be coming in, or money's coming in, but you take a day off and you're sunk.
Yeah.
How can we have those stop moments where we can evaluate and say, is this really what I want? Because I could see, as you're sharing that a lot of docs will just say, I'm just going to keep running faster, and maybe if I run fast enough, I'll get there. When they're already there, they need to pivot and change. How do you have that systematic checklist to, I should evaluate before I take off again? What is this really what I want? How does a chiropractor do that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because fundamentally, we've got to get to core truths. Because if we don't get to core truth, we're really just piling up excuses, reasons, justifications, mirages, and masks all over the place. And so we're not actually really, we're thinking we're doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, or the wrong thing for the right reasons. So to me, and I've done a lot of personal growth and development work where we help run retreats for 5 days, where you strip back all the BS, all the excuses, all the reasons, justifications, the labels, the pressures people have, and get to core truth, strip them right back and go, who are you and what you stand for? What's important to you? And when you get to that point, I'm incredibly blessed, aside from my beautiful wife, who we call it on each other in a loving way to go, hang on, is this the truth, or is this just what's going on here? I've got a group of friends of mine who I would die for. And we have a level of honesty and transparency that and honesty with each other, to just go, hey, I've seen you at your best. And when you're not expressing that, it is my responsibility as a friend to say what's going on. And I will stick by you because I love you and I know you are expressing more than what you're showing right now. And so when you get to that level of core truth, you can peel back all the excuses and reasons and the rationalizations, and get to, okay, here's why this is not happening. Here is why I'm burnt out. Here is why I'm not growing. And fundamentally, start changing those at a really baseline level.
Wow. You have taught so many powerful lessons right there. And these are the lessons that I hear the most successful people and the happiest people. The difference between successful and happy.
Yeah.
And to see that you have both, but these lessons of being able to have mentors and friends, and be able to have true, honest conversations with yourself and with your spouse is absolutely critical. And I want every chiropractor on earth, I want you, the chiropractor, to understand this lesson now, that you can have everything you want right now. You need to see the end from where you are now, and to have those systematic stops where you evaluate, am I happy? Am I making a difference? Am I going where I want to go? Am I going at the velocity? Am I able to be vulnerable with those that I trust? Do I have accountability? Do I have an accountability group? These are the lessons that the most successful and the happiest people make. I am so grateful for you, Jim. I am so happy for you and Bettina and the journey and continued journey you guys are on, for the success you have, and for everyone in the Chiropractor's Edge. If you go to the chiropractorsedge.com, once this podcast airs, for you to be able to understand who Jim really is, who Bettina really is, we're putting their coaching group, Lux Consulting Group, on our page, so you can truly understand. You need to find a coach who resonates with you, but you also, a lot of us look for cheerleaders in a coach. We also need people who can challenge us. Look for people who
Mm.
can literally say, hey, okay, let me peel this off. I got to peel that off. And that's who Jim and Bettina are. So, Jim, thank you so much for being on all the way from Australia. I know it's early here and late there, but thank you for being here.
So,
It shows your dedication to the profession. I'm so honored to know you and to have you on today. And we wish you all the love and all the success and all the happiness in the world.
thanks, Jake. It was a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on, and yeah, I hope we catch up in live and in person soon.
Yes, my friend. We're grateful for you, and keep changing the world and keep running.
Thank you. You too. You too.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye bye.